Good evening to all of you. My warm welcome to all the participants and our chairperson, Professor Rajan Kumar. Before inviting Professor Rajan Kumar, I just want to introduce Professor Rajan Kumar. He teaches in the School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. He's a regular now columnist in Financial Express and other newspapers. Now presently in every bilateral visits or anything happens for in Eurasian region, definitely you will get the newspaper article written by Professor Rajan Kumar. He is my super senior and our respectable teacher in JNU. Now his latest book on re-emerging Russia now is published by Palgrave Macmillan. He is the now authority of the Russia and he is a very dynamic and rewarding teacher in JNU. Today we are fortunate to have a Professor Rajan Kumar to chair this session. Really, I welcome you, sir. Now request Professor Rajan Kumar to chair the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sumant Sohan. It's wonderful that you are organizing this seminar, and very long seminar. I must say, this is like a test match. It's not like 2020. So you have spread out for 3 days, and then you have so many speakers across the continent, not just from India, not just from one city of Delhi, but across the world. You have so many speakers speaking in this forum. And it must have taken a lot of effort to organize this kind of event. And I really congratulate Sumant for that, Dr. Sumant, who is my colleague, friend, and at 1 or 2 years junior to me. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm feeling honored and privileged that I'm interacting with such esteemed scholars from across the world, and I can see some of the former students who were in my class earlier. They are also here. So thank you so much. And today's focus, as you can see, is on bilateral cooperation between India and Russia. And there are 5 speakers. One is Dr. Nivedita Kapoor. She is a junior fellow in Russia and Eurasia Observer Research Foundation, New Delhi. She has been writing regularly. She has been a very prolific, writer. I've seen her writings in some of the places. She just finished her PhD, and she made a wonderful presentation there also. So welcome, Nivedita. Second speaker is Abhishek Mohanty. He is a research scholar from Russian Presidential Academy, Moscow, Russia, and he'll speak on India-Russia relations in the midst of COVID-19 outbreak. The third is Dr. Alexei Zakharov. Welcome, Dr. Alexei Zakharov. He is a senior research fellow at Center for Indian Studies, Institute of Oriental Studies, Moscow, Russia. And as you know, that Institute of Oriental Studies, that in the Moscow State University, is the premier institute in Russia, and he's a research fellow there. And he'll be speaking on India-Russia political relations issues and opportunities. Then we have Miss Rutuja Sharad Raut. She's a research scholar at Center for Central Eurasian Studies, University of Mumbai, India. She'll speak on strategic significance of political relations, India and Russian Federation. And then we have the last speaker, who is Dr. Bhagidhar Sethi. Bhagidhar Sethi was a former student in our center, in our school and university. And he's a senior research scholar who finished his PhD, and he is writing quite a bit on India-Russia energy cooperation. Very committed, very wonderful student. I've known him personally. So these are the broader things that we'll be discussing in today's presentation by 5 very illustrious speakers that we have. Before that, I would like to say a few things about the protocol. All of you will speak for 15 minutes each, because online presentation becomes boring if you just speak for a very long time. So what I request you is that please speak for confine yourself for 15 minutes. Less is better. That's what I can tell you. And then we'll take a 5 minutes break, as I've been told by Dr. Sumant Soin, that we'll take a 5 minute break, and then you can ask the question. All right. So first 5 speakers will speak. In between, there'll be no question. And after the break, there'll be a Q&A from the audience. But before I get into the first speaker, I would like to highlight some of the things so that a direction is given to this seminar. What is happening in today's world is that because the topic prominently in everybody's this presentation today, the COVID and the post-COVID. So earlier, just a few years back, we were talking about Cold War and the post-Cold War period. And that had become a repetitive kind of, title for most of the researchers. But now I think, that period is over. And we are now talking about COVID and post-COVID. So before COVID, BC, and after COVID, mean AD. So, that kind of situation which is emerging. And I would be really interested in, please mute, all of you, please mute your mic. I'll request all the participants to mute the mic. So what is happening is that now people have started thinking in terms of post-COVID. So what there are two kind of arguments broadly in the international politics. If you read the literature, one argument says that COVID is going to lead to transformative changes in international politics. But there are some other scholars. There is a huge set of other scholars who argue that COVID is not likely to transform the international order. What it is going to do rather is that it's going to accentuate and accelerate the existing tendencies which are already underway. So the two arguments are very, very clear in, if you see the literature of international politics of today. So in that context, how do you place the relations between India and Russia? And as you know that even today, because this is an important occasion for India and Russia, because there is a Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting is taking place today, and the BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organizations are the two organizations where India and Russia participate very, very actively. These are the two multilateral forums exclusively where India and Russia they play very, very important role along with the other countries. So there was some debate, there is some debate, and there are scholars in India who argue that that Shanghai Cooperation Organization is the NATO of the East. So because we are having a huge problem, border issue with China. So some of the scholars argue that India should rather focus on United States and not with an organization like Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which by some of the scholars is considered, as the NATO of the East. So they take a very narrow perspective of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. My understanding is that it's extremely important for India to remain embedded in Central Asia and Eurasia. As you know that India has been trying to develop very good relations with Central Asian countries, with Russia, of course, and also through Chabahar to Afghanistan and Central Asia. My strong contention here is that India cannot give a walkover to China by retreating from organizations like Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Shanghai Cooperation Organization is going to play a very, very important role in Afghanistan, for that matter, on the issues of drug trafficking, which is taking place from Tajikistan, Afghanistan to Russia and other countries. Shanghai Cooperation Organization will play a very important role in containing radicalism and terrorism that you see in Central Asian states. So, and there are only two security organizations which are effective in Central Asia today. One is the CSTO and the other one is Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So the arguments given by some of the Indian scholars that, Shanghai Cooperation, India should retreat or India should not be active and India should try to go with United States because we are having a very strong Quad and Malabar exercises with, so that contention is little, in my view, can be dangerous for India because, we cannot allow the Indian interest to be sacrificed in Central Asia, in Afghanistan. So for that reason, Shanghai Cooperation Organization becomes important. Also, the BRICS, the other multilateral organization, we had meeting of the BRICS, this minister, and again we are going to have the summit meeting of BRICS in the October next month. In that meeting again, if India wants to play a really important global role or a role in global governance, then India has to be active in BRICS also. And we are living in a world of uncertainty. We do not really know what kind of world we are going to witness in the coming years. In the area of darkness, when in the age of uncertainty, the safest bet for any country is to stick to institutions, because institutions give you direction. It has a moderating effect on all the countries. India and China are fighting, but even then, there is a kind of there is a kind of pressure both on India and China, a kind of moral pressure not to escalate the conflict, because they know that they are going to ultimately sit together and talk in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and also in the BRICS. So multilateral institutions, they play a very important role in socializing, in moderating, and of course in advancing economic and political interests that all the states pursue. So these are the multilateral aspects of the relationship between the two countries. And again, after that, there is a bilateral aspect where military cooperation, as you know, is very, very important. And then India's relation with Russia is unique in the history, because India is the only country in the world today which has a very good relation with both Russia as well as United States. You cannot imagine any country in the world which has an excellent relationship with two countries. So India is uniquely placed today in terms of India's geopolitical, convergence with the two major powers, and we cannot, and India can emerge as a pivot of democratic alliance in the future. India is one country which is seen as the model by a number of countries, because we are democracy, and democracy plus development. If we can sustain that model of democracy and development, then India can emerge as a model in the future. India is already third and fourth largest, fourth powerful country in terms of military, or now gradually is reaching up in economy also. So India is going to play a very active role in the coming years. And in that, the kind of models that you'll have, one is Chinese model, second is the United States model, and third for the countries which are not necessarily either the Western countries or the countries similar to China. For those countries, democratic development model is going to be a very attractive model for them to pursue. But the challenge for India is to keep the house in order. We need to protect our democracy. We need to protect our institutions, and we also need to, to kind of develop the transcendental values of democracy, which might be acceptable to a number of countries. But I'm the chair today, so I'll not be taking too much of time. What I'll rather, with that kind of framework, I'll come to the speakers now, and I'll request the speakers to throw up some of the challenges that these two countries are facing in the broader geopolitical framework that you are witnessing today. And in that context, I'll start with Dr. Nivedita Kapoor, and Nivedita will speak on just a moment. Yeah, Nivedita will speak on India-Russia relations in a post-COVID world. So Nivedita, you have to speak for 15 minutes, and then later on we'll have Q&A. So thank you so much for coming, Nivedita, and accepting this invitation. I welcome you, and I'm sure you will make a good job. Thank you so much. Nivedita, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, sir, and good afternoon, everyone. As sir said, the topic of my presentation is Indo-Russia relations in a post-COVID world. So what I will do is I'll first very quickly look at the changing world order, and then I will examine this prevailing situation to understand its impact on the Indo-Russian engagement at the bilateral as well as the multilateral front. So we are all aware that the US-China rivalry is slowly intensifying. No one is arguing that this rivalry is new, but what COVID has done, it has intensified this US-China rivalry. And that is what Indian foreign policy makers and the Russian policy makers fear. It will put pressure on the foreign policies of both the countries. With regard to US and China rivalry, what is more concerning is that if the world goes into a bipolar situation, it will force other countries, middle powers and the smaller powers, to take sides. And earlier, most of these powers like India, Southeast Asian countries, other middle powers, we were all hedging. We were trying to build our relationship with both the powers in order to advance our interests. For India, the situation is concerning not only because we have a rising China on our borders, but also because of the fact that that power is behaving now more aggressively. And we've already seen the situation on the Sino-Indian border since May. And at the same time, India is also worried about how the rise of China, a more aggressive China, will affect its positioning in Asia as a whole. Already, India had been growing closer to the United States even before this entire border dispute took place. And not just with the United States, but also with other key powers in the Indo-Pacific, because we wanted to manage China without getting into an active conflict with it. As a result, when we look at what we can say a post-COVID world, wherever it emerges once we are out of this COVID period, we will not see a revolutionary change in Indian foreign policy because we are already slowly turning in that direction. But what we will see is an intensification of the policies that we were already seeing. Russia, on the other hand, had been witnessing an improved relationship with China, while at the same time its relations with the West had been going down since the 2014 Ukrainian crisis. And while Russia recognizes that its relationship with China is an asymmetric relationship, both Russia and China understand the importance of each other in the prevailing scenario. And this has helped them maintain an essential equality in their relationship. Also at the same time, Russia does not see any reason to antagonize China, which has been a stable partner, just in order to please the West, whom Russia does not trust. And several scholars have also argued that the US policies have in fact pushed Russia more towards China, which has in turn strengthened Beijing's hand. So it is this divergence of India moving towards the United States and Russia moving towards China that is the essential divergence in our foreign policies that India and Russia will have to manage as they go ahead. Both India and Russia are pragmatic powers, and both have insisted that they are looking at their national interests and they want to preserve their bilateral relationship. But at the same time, they cannot escape the fact that the international system is changing. And as two important players in this international system, their position will be impacted in certain ways, and that they will have to manage this ongoing change. As a result, we see that while India and Russia are not antagonistic to each other, they realize that a world divided into blocs will be detrimental to their interests because they want to maintain a diversified portfolio of relations in order to promote their interests. So now, as I've set out the essential way that the world order is emerging, I will now look at the Indo-Russia relationship and the impact of this churn on three particular aspects. First is the Asian regional order, second is select multilateral organizations, and third, the bilateral relationship. I'll start off with the Asian regional order because this is the geography where India is situated and where most of it's the critical theater of our operations. It's also a geography where Russia has been trying to improve its presence. It has had limited success till now, and that has been characterized with the dependence on China. I'll point out here that just a few days ago, C. Rajamohan wrote that India has to be realist about Asia and the shifting priorities in this particular continent. And while India has the potential and it wants to play a larger role, its economic presence and its other strengths still remain limited at the moment. It still has a long way to go. And similar thing can be said about Russia when it comes to Asia. What we have seen mostly is that China has become a little more aggressive in recent years, and that has led to a response of other states in the form of the Indo-Pacific concept, in the formation of Quad, plurilaterals like JAI. The countries like US and Japan and the European Union, they have improved investments. They've increased their investments in Asia. And India has also thrown its weight behind these concepts as it has been worried about the rise of China. We saw the Belt and Road Initiative that India was very worried about. The Sino-Indian clashes on the border has now the experts believe that these clashes will have a long-term impact on how India reacts to China. While India still says that it wants to adhere to diplomatic channels, it is being seen that we have been tougher in recent times as to how we deal with China. So that shift has been seen. While India would like to see its strategic partner Russia strengthen its position in the Asian regional tussle as that's going on, Russia is dealing with its own unique situation, wherein China has become its key partner and it's expected to remain its key partner for some time now. And Russia really does not see any incentive to antagonize China at this point in time, given the state of its relations with the West. This situation has not been helped by the fact that the American Indo-Pacific strategy has called Russia a malign actor. So that has impacted India's ability to convince Russia of the idea of Indo-Pacific being an inclusive concept. So, and in the midst of this, both India and Russia realize that Russia is not also a rule setter in the region, and its ability to fulfill its foreign policy ambitions in Asia also remains a little limited. While Russia has put in a lot of efforts in trying to improve its relations in East Asia, it has introduced the concept of Greater Eurasia. Its success has been rather limited, and it's mostly confined to Northeast Asia. And the fear in India is that if Russia becomes too close to China, that will impact its relations with other states in Asia who are trying to manage their relations by keeping the United States as a security hedge while also preserving their economic relations with China. And at the same time, the antagonistic relations between Russia and the United States is also impacting the ability of India to enmesh Russia in its Asia policy at the moment. And as there seems to be no hope of an improvement in the US-Russia relationship to enable these two countries, US and Russia, to cooperate in Asia, so that also complicates India's position. And that, I think, is limiting Indo-Russia cooperation when it comes to the Asian regional order. Now, I'll quickly come to the multilateral organizations, where I'll focus on RIC, SCO, and BRICS, the three places where Russia, India, and China cooperate very closely. So what we have seen here is A, the rising Chinese power, and B, the rising Indo-China tensions that are expected to have an impact on the dynamics of these organizations. We've already seen that while the RIC foreign ministers meeting did happen, there was no communique issued at the end of it. And most recently, India cancelled its participation in the SCO joint military exercises. While the reason cited was COVID, but many suspect that it is because of the Indo-China tensions that is going on. Now, the RIC plurilateral was already under the scanner because the foreign policies of their member countries was already diverging in many ways. And while it was an institution of continued sustained dialogue, it had not been able to produce concrete strategic cooperation or produce institutions in its format. So this had already been a concern. This is actually not a new issue that has come up in case of the RIC. BRICS, in contrast, has been able to institutionalize itself in recent years and has become an important actor. But what the growing Sino-Indian rivalry is expected to do is sort of limit the areas of cooperation. So while the economic and financial cooperation in BRICS is expected to continue, what it is feared that because of the foreign policies of the member countries are not always in sync with each other, it will limit its voice at the international fora on global issues because they will not be able to come to an understanding. So it will limit the range of issues on which BRICS can put its views forward. Now, when it comes to the SCO, there are several common issues of concerns like counterterrorism, Afghanistan, the issue of connectivity, where SCO is an important actor. But again, there were several problems that were already evident in SCO. There was already some divergence between Russia and China in terms of agenda setting. Then with the inclusion of India and Pakistan, now SCO also has to manage the India-Pakistan equation and the Indo-China equation. So several analysts point out that this has sort of hindered SCO's ability to come up with concrete action plans. And that is what is the main concern in the case of SCO. So as I already pointed out, some of these issues already preceded the pandemic. But what is expected to happen in the post-pandemic period is that these weaknesses are expected to be exacerbated or highlighted more because of the prevailing world system. And here we have seen that Russia has been trying to strike a very delicate balance because it does not want to antagonize either of its partner, India or China. And that has given it a very limited space to maneuver. While I'm not saying that this precludes the importance of multilateral organizations, and just yesterday, Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar pointed out that we live in a world where we will continue with multiple engagements. So we will engage with SCO and BRICS, and at the same time, we will have the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting next month, and India will host that meeting. So this complex engagement among different groupings looks set to continue. But what I can say is that in the prevailing conditions, all these mechanisms will have to prove their usefulness to member states, and that is what will determine the priority ascribed to these various institutions. So if RIC, BRICS, SCO, if they can manage their bilateral divergences and retain the relevance for its constituents, then it will have a high priority in the foreign policies of, say, India or Russia. But if they fail to do so, then their voice in setting the global order will diminish. And if that happens, that will lead to a decreased Indo-Russia cooperation at the multilateral level. Now, I'll very quickly come to the bilateral front. Now that we have looked at the potential impact of the changing world order on Indo-Russia cooperation in Asia and multilateral organizations, I look at how the bilateral relationship exists and how it can be insulated from any potential negative impact. If we see that just before the pandemic hit, India and Russia had been trying to give an impetus to the economic relationship. It was very clear from the 2019 summit. But the ongoing economic distress and the global recession will impact our ability to meet the goals that we had set for ourselves. The defense relationship has also been revived to quite a bit extent in the past few years, and efforts are now being made to move from a buyer-seller relationship to a more equitable relationship. Both sides have a trusted relationship, and they have both demonstrated their willingness to continue this bilateral relationship and ensure a steady progress. But here, again, the key challenge will be to ensure that their diverging foreign partnerships with other countries do not affect the strategic partnership. And how they do that is going to be crucial in maintaining these bilateral partnerships. See, both the parties understand the national interest of each other, and they have been very pragmatic in their conduct till now. And there is no denying that China is very important for Russia and its foreign policy, and that the Indo-US relationship is very important for the Indian foreign policy in the current scenario. So in between this, India and Russia have to decide that if they want to maintain a diversified portfolio of ties and not get enmeshed in alliance-like partnerships with any country, they will have to help each other. So on one hand, it is in India's interest to ensure that Russia and China do not get any closer than they already have, and they provide some strategic space to Russia to maneuver. Similarly, Russia will gain from reducing its overdependence on China by strengthening its ties with other Asian countries, which includes India. And this is also a time for future planning, whether we look at the economic relationship, whether we look at all the areas that we have decided can promote the economic relationship, the Chennai-Vladivostok maritime link, the Act Far East policy, all of these ideas have to be pursued. We need to find concrete projects, and there has to be a long-term view of things so that we can ensure economic development and at the same time achieve our strategic goals, which include increasing our presence in East Asia. We'll look at Arctic as an important area of cooperation. So this will strengthen India's and Russia's presence in these geographies that will help both the parties. So at this time of flux, I would say that it would not be prudent for either side to let go of a very time-tested partner. It's clear from the above discussion that this is not going to be easy. We are being pulled in different directions, and it is going to be a difficult journey in the coming years. But if we keep a long-term view, if we keep a focus on the areas that bring us together, we keep focusing on the bilateral relationship and try to insulate it from the other happenings, from the other global and regional events, we can hope that once the world order stabilizes a bit, we will be able to carry forward our relationship as we have been doing and build the strategic partnership. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Nivedita. That was a wonderful presentation, and you made right, point about the kind of choices that India has, and how even the multilateral organizations can be useful if they continue to serve the purpose for the member countries. So that was an excellent presentation, and I'm sure that must have provoked a lot of thoughts among the people who are participating in this conference. Now I'll move on to next speaker, who is Abhishek Mohanty. Abhishek Mohanty, can you hear me? Are you there? Abhishek Mohanty, unmute your unmute yourself if you're there. Hello. Abhishek, is he not there? Sumant, Abhishek is there? The second presenter?
Sir, I'm checking, sir.
Yeah, just check it.
There is no presenter named Abhishek in the conference tonight.
Okay, sir, we will allow sir next presenter, we'll see, sir.
Okay, just a minute, yeah. So, yeah, Abhishek Monti is not there, I'm sorry. His name he was there, but anyway, so we'll move on to next presenter, who is Dr. Alexei Zakharov. Dr. Zakharov is a research fellow in Center for Indian Studies, Institute of Oriental Studies, Russian Academy of Sciences, Moscow, Russia. And he'll be speaking on India-Russia political relations, issues and opportunities. Dr. Zakharov, the floor is yours, and you take another 15 minutes to finish your presentation, please.
Thank you, Professor Kumar, and good afternoon to my Russian colleagues, and good evening to Indian scholars. In my presentation, I will focus on some challenges and opportunities for India-Russia political relations. And I have to say that many points that I was thinking to speak about were already covered by Nivedita's presentation, but still I can contribute some of my personal view to the topic. So in my presentation, I will focus on three broad areas. And in order to make some genuine continuation from the previous presentation, I will continue with, first I will continue with the geopolitical environment, and then I will focus more on the bilateral aspects of our relationship. So if we think about the geopolitical picture, I think it is very important for both countries, and it's clear. But our approaches are slightly different to the broad geopolitical environment. While Moscow has been investing considerable efforts in promoting its greater Eurasia partnership vision, India has been pushing forward the idea of free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. And I think it's explained by, partially it's explained by the geopolitical visions of the two countries. Russia is more thinking in terms of the continent, and India, although it's both a sea and land country, it bets more on the naval partnership, at least in the recent years. In general, I think that these two concepts are quite complementary. It's difficult to imagine Eurasia without the maritime domain, and there are some indications, even in a very vague and unclear idea that Russia has been promoting. It's easy to see that the idea to come up with the vision from Lisbon to Jakarta cannot avoid any kind of maritime partnership as well. So including ASEAN nations does imply that there should be some maritime connections also. Second indication is the idea to promote Chennai-Vladivostok maritime corridor. And I think that it's clear that unstable situation in Eurasia, we have a crisis in Afghanistan, we have some conflict interests, does not allow to have trade corridors on the land. So it will be inevitable to promote some maritime links between India and Russia as well. When it comes to the Indo-Pacific, it's also incomplete without some land cooperation. And if we look at the visions, different Indo-Pacific regions, all of them include some kind of infrastructure, transport, development, construction projects, energy projects. And these are projects which are envisioned to take place in the littoral states. With that said, I think that it's important to highlight two challenges for Russia-India regional partnership. First has already been mentioned by Nivedita, which is the rise in tension between India and China. And I tend to support her skepticism with regard to the multilateral formats, which Russian diplomacy bets a lot, like SCO and Russia-India-China trilateral. I also think that the difficult situation in India-China relationship will cast a shadow over the functioning of these formats. With BRICS, I think the situation is slightly different because BRICS has emerged as the forum on a very wide range of topics, and economic, financial, and public diplomacy aspects were always on the top of the BRICS agenda, while political issues were minor. But when it comes to SEO and RIC or RIC, there, on the contrary, the issues of security, of political cooperation, of extremist terrorism, they were more important. And it's difficult to be on the same page for Beijing and New Delhi on such strategic issues, given the level of their relationship now. But as Dr. Jaishankar mentioned recently, the conflicts should be resolved through diplomacy. And a good sign that despite this situation, there are some high-level meetings. So the interaction between high-level officials of all the member states continues. So it gives us hope that all the misunderstandings and differences will be resolved through the talks and by peaceful measures. At the same time, I mean, the bottom line is that there will be less and less, I mean, India and China will be less and less likely to make concessions on very important strategic issues. So anyway, I think it will affect this regional platforms agenda. The second challenge is differences between Russia and India with regard to the Indo-Pacific concept. As all of you know, I'm sure that Moscow does not endorse this idea and this concept. And I think that even though in the recent months we've heard some statements from Indian officials urging Russia to, if not reconsider its approach, but to get involved in the region, to find some space for bilateral partnership, I think that Moscow is not likely to change its course, given the state of its relationship with the United States. So I think that it will require a lot of diplomatic work to find common ground, how to cooperate in this maritime domain. And in general, I think that even though there is some experience between Russia and India to cooperate in the Indo-Pacific, or if you call it in the region of Pacific and Indian Oceans, we have bilateral naval exercises, regular exercises, and our navies has always had some kind of partnership. But still, how Russia and India will be able to adopt their geopolitical visions will be crucial for their future partnership, at least in the near-term future. Moving on to the bilateral part of our relationship, I think that it's important to pay attention to the traditional areas of our cooperation, which are defense and energy. I think that given the new existing challenges in these areas, it's very important to reinvigorate partnership in these spheres. First, our partnership in defense is influenced by the US sanctions against Russia. And I think that it's clear that even though India is still very much reliable on the Russian defense production, in the long run, this dependency is likely to be reduced. Even though I think we can imagine that for most sophisticated weaponry with no alternatives in the world, India will still opt for the Russian origin defense procurement. When it comes to energy partnership, I think it seems to be developing well, especially after successful Moscow summit last year, and a good sign that our partnership is expanding in terms of different energy resources supplies. It's not only oil and gas, it's also an increase in coal supplies from Russia. Our nuclear energy has some new features like cooperation in third countries, and I think that there is scope for our two countries to cooperate in this domain in different countries of Asia and Africa, just like our specialists have been working together in Bangladesh. But with that said, I think it's important, and it's much discussed in the expert community, it's important to expand these areas of cooperation to find some new avenues for our partnership. And I think that it, again, much depends on the political will, and many areas were included in our bilateral joint statements, like cooperation in technological sector, in new emerging technologies and information technologies and so on, but it hasn't been implemented. And there are some good examples of Russian companies entering Indian market and offering digital solutions and technological products, but mostly these are single cases. And of course, we have to, I mean, we should expect more such success stories. I also think that it's important, like India paid attention to the Russian Far East, and it was a good example when the Russian region, which needs development and investment, I mean, attracted India's attention and its will to cooperate there, invest there, and partner with these region's companies and regional government. I think that the same should be made from the Russian side, because we see not sufficient attention from Russia to the Indian region. And mostly, if we have some economic projects, they boil down to large cities in India. So I think that this aspect deserves more attention. And finally, of course, we should not forget about bringing in civil societies into our dialogue, because mostly Russia-India partnership continues to be the interaction between two governments, at the state-to-state level. And in this regard, I think that among many areas, educational and academic linkages should be only welcomed. So I hope that this conference will become a significant step in this direction. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Alexey Zakharov. That was very nicely presented, excellent presentation by Dr. Zakharov, and he rightly pointed out how there are some opportunities, but at the same time, there are a few challenges. And as I could figure out, the most important challenge that he also kind of mentioned, but I also see very, very important in the context of emerging India-Russia relationship. How do you reconcile the strategy of India's Indo-Pacific with Russia's strategy? And it's not been really easy for India because, you know, as Nivedita also very eloquently pointed out in her presentation, that, you know, India is trying to balance India's strategic relationship with Russia at the same time with the Quad. And the kind of relationship that you have between Russia and United States, so that is in a way impacting somehow the relationship with between this India and Russia also. But you know, Alexey, what I would like to to point it out that somehow I believe that, you know, India and Russia, they have come to this understanding that Russia is closer to China today because, you know, the West has pushed Russia towards China. Because of the sanctions post, Crimea, whatever happened. So because of that, Russia has moved closer to China. But Indians believe, most of the Indian believes that there are some, divergence of views, or, there are some issues which might come up between China and Russia also. And if United States, with the change of government, or, in future, if US, or at least, if not the US, at least the West, I mean the European countries like France, Italy, Germany, etc., they are not, if they decide to have a good relation with Russia, so the entire, the conflict that we see between the West and Russia today, so that will take a new direction. And in that context, in future, I see that there is a prospect that how there can be a convergence even on Indo-Pacific strategy. And also remember that when India talks of this, the Quad, so the major focus of Quad is maritime strategy. It's not necessarily, the focus is not the landmass strategy. India's major conflict that you see today is with the land issues, territorial issues with China and Pakistan. And Quad does not have a very clear strategy on, what kind of position will they take when there is a conflict between India and China. On the other hand, what I see that with Russia, we have some understanding. Russia continued to support India when, despite having an excellent relationship with China for that matter. Russia has not backtracked despite Chinese pressure from supplying S-400, that that anti-ballistic missile system that you have. So Russia, Russia continues to support India even during the conflict with China. So that gives a lot of confidence. Rajnath Singh visited last month, visited in the Victory Day parade to Kremlin. Despite COVID, despite we had here a very huge conflict with China. So that goes on to show the kind of importance that India gives to Russia, and it has been very nicely pointed out by Niveta as well as you. So thank you so much. There must be some questions that the audience would like to ask you towards the end of the session. But before I get into detail, I would like to invite Ms. Sharad Raut from University of Mumbai. Hello, Ms. Raut, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Very much. You are loud and clear. So you can go ahead with your presentation. And thank you so much for accepting the request to make a presentation. And I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job. So go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, respected Chair, Eurasian Foundation, Dr. Suman Swain, sir, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I would also like to thank Professor Sanjay Deshpande and Dr. Tanaji for always being so supportive and encouraging. So thank you so much. Today, I'm going to talk on strategic significance of political relations, India and Russian Federation. The legacy of friendship, which is maintained by both the nations, has set a very strong foundation for their flourished relations. Relations between India and Russia are rooted in history, mutual trust, and mutually beneficial cooperation. This is a strategic partnership that has withstood the test of time and which enjoys the support of people of both the countries. The depth of the connection and the history of the relations can be traced by the very first Russian traveler, Afanassy Nikitin, who visited India during medieval period in the spring of 1469. The beginning of the political relations was started happening on the 13th April 1947, before India could get independence. That is, both India and Soviet Union officially engaged into the bilateral relations. The relations of India with Soviet Union during Cold War period had set a very solid foundation to nurture their relations ahead. I'm not going into much detail of historical details, as we all are aware of it. However, the disintegration of the Soviet Union has brought many changes, not only in India-Russia relations, but it changed the several foreign policy objectives of many countries on the global platform. This period reflects the ups and downs, as in 1991, Russia, who has succeeded Soviet Union, tilted towards the free market economy. The process for this has already started with the reforms like Perestroika and Glasnost. Even 1991 year has brought liberalization, privatization, and globalization in India, and its relations become closer to US. However, this does not mean that their friendship weakened, but the things were prioritized according to the strategic interest. So the political relations of India and Russia in new millennium can be calculated in terms of interests and opportunities. The mutual interest and trust are the core values on which the bilateral relationship is based on. It was once again in the new millennium, both the nations have geared their relations with the signing of Declaration of Strategic Partnership between the Republic of India and the Russian Federation in 2000. Today we are celebrating the 20th years of it. Further, the period 2004 to 14 had once again revived the old era of friendship, which can be counted on the basis of strategic congruence, various defense ties, and increasing trade. The bilateral political relations are based on certain mechanisms, like there are two intergovernmental commissions, specifically known as IRGC TEC and IRIGC MTC. To bolster this strategic partnership, there is an annual summit. The most recent one is the 20th Vladivostok Bilateral Summit attended by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on 4th-5th September 2019. With the same, a meeting was held on the sidelines of BRICS between Narendra Modi and Vladimir Putin in Brasilia on 13th November 2019 for holding the bilateral regional forum. And besides that, the Prime Minister and the Presidents, there are also bilateral consultations and visits of top ministers to explore the various corners and areas of cooperation. I'll just mention the brief accounts of remarkable agreements that had strengthened and enhanced their relationship. That is, very first, the Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation between the Government of India and the Government of the USSR on 9th August 1971, New Delhi. Then the Delhi Statement by the Independent Commission on Disarmament and Security Issues on 19th Jan 1986. Then there is this Declaration of Strategic Partnership between the Republic of India and the Russian Federation on 3rd October 2000. Then the Joint Declaration of Druzhba Dosti, a vision for strengthening of Indian-Russian partnership over the next decade on December 11, 2014, and the Joint Statement on Partnership for Global Peace and Stability in October 2016. So, this friendship and their partnership has this strategic angle too, as we all are aware of it, with changing time and circumstances. Russia, under the strong leadership of President Putin, is trying to revive its control on the republics that have got independence after the collapse. A stronger and more comprehensive relationship with India would help certainly Russia to maintain its equilibrium in Greater Eurasia, including vis-a-vis China. India too would clearly benefit from more productive and secure links to Russia. Russia's stand to create a multipolar world, bringing multilateralism, was appreciated by India. And also, by taking into consideration India's role on the global platform, Russia supports its candidature for a seat in the UNSC. India is a part of quadrilateral security dialogues with US, Australia, and Japan for maintaining balance of power in Indo-Pacific region. Its tilt towards West is a matter of concern for Russia. And similarly, Russia's increasing relations with Pakistan and China is a matter of concern for India. However, their relations has long way to go. So looking forward, the warmth which is kept by both the countries can be seen throughout the years, not only in their political arena, but also in other diverse areas. Certainly, the good political ties between them would make it easy to reach towards the goal faster and more easier. Not only they have exchanges their domestic affairs, but also on the international platform, both share some common platforms like BRICS, RIC, and SCO in reshaping the global politics. Both the nations have several commonalities too, like both of them shared a socialistic path of development, accommodation of diversities of pluralistic society, and most importantly, they shared a common belief to create a multipolar world. The relations are not only limited to the political heads of the state, but also the people of both the countries are connected to each other with their hearts. The result of their special, privileged, and strategic partnership has contributed to not only regional, but also the international peace and stability. Undoubtedly, both India and Russia will continue to advance, enhance, and continue to extend their comprehensive relations way ahead, as there is no full stop for their relations. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rutuja Raut, and it was a wonderful presentation. You gave a very broad overview. You started from the historical period, medieval period, and then you came to the latest different kind of strategic bilateral as well as multilateral partnership. So that was very nice, and you raised some of the valid points that how India's interests converge with Russia at global forum and also at the different, the land forum. We also point out some of the routes which might be, which might connect India and Russia together in future. In fact, I would have liked one of the scholars, and one of the scholars can answer us later. How do you see the progress of the North-South transport corridor? And this is for everybody, not just for Rutuja, but also the previous two speakers. That how do you see the role of North-South international North-South transport corridor in kind of enhancing or the cooperation between the two countries? Because one of the factors which inhibit the growth of relationship between the two countries is the land connectivity. Russia or Central Asia, that region is not connected to India, and that has created a major problem for the energy cooperation or even the transport of goods between the two regions. So I would like one of the speakers to highlight on that for the benefit of audience later. But for the time being, I'll move on. Thank you, Rutuja Rao. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
It was very nice. It was excellent. And now I'll invite Bhagidhar Sethi. Bhagidhar Sethi, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
And your voice is not very clear, so you have to come a little closer to your mic.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, now you're better, but I can't see your face. Okay, so okay, great.
Sir, my video is on.
Yeah. No, you are visible very much. Thank you so much, Bhagidhar Sethi. And Bhagidhar is going to speak on India-Russia energy cooperation, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So Bhagidhar has been a student of Jawaharlal Nehru University. He has finished his PhD, and he has been a wonderful student. That's what I can tell you. And today he is going to throw some light on India-Russia energy cooperation, and that is one area where there is a lot of scope, but we need to enhance the cooperation in that area. So Bhagidhar, throw some light on that cooperation between two countries. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, entire colleague here. Those are
little louder, Bhagidhar, little louder. Yes.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, the entire colleague here. Those who are participating in this virtual meeting today. I'm Dr. Bhagidhar Sethi, a research scholar in the Center of Russian and Central Asian Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. I'm very glad to get a chance to participate today in this prestigious platform. Thanks, Dr. Suman Swain, sir. And my paper is India-Russia Energy Cooperation, the way ahead. As we all know, energy is playing a prominent role in geopolitics today in its exploration since 1950s. Energy has been used as the weapons for economic development around the world. So many international geopolitical fights have been already happened on the basis of centering energy. So for greater availability, accessibility, affordability, and acceptability of energy has enhanced all the countries for building mutual ties for energy security. Therefore, India, as third biggest consumer in terms of International Energy Agency, and Russia is one of the largest suppliers of energy resources, has built cordial and mutual ties addressing energy security. My paper deals the view from Russia as well as India and their future prospects, as well as in the conclusion part, I have made some recommendations. It flags the major issues that hinder developments of energy ties between these two countries. Russia and India have a long history of cooperation in the energy sector. Since the last 2000s, the Russia-India energy partnership has been playing and enjoying a renaissance as respectively energy deficient and energy surplus countries. India and Russia have a mutual interest in cooperation in this sector. India continues to look towards Russia as its major energy supplier. This is manifested in its investment in Russia's Sakhalin-1 hydrocarbon project in 2001, one of the largest ever foreign investment made by ONGC Videsh Limited. And we will talk about the recent developments, including investments made by Indian companies like Indian Oil Corporation Limited and Bharatiya Petroleum Resources Limited in Russia's oil and gas sector. If we'll see the nuclear energy deals, we can see in 1988, India and the Soviet Union signed at least 10 nuclear cooperation deals. Today, Russia continues to cooperate with India in the peaceful use of nuclear energy. India's Department of Atomic Energy, and Russia's Rustom signed in December 2014 the strategic vision for strengthening cooperation in peaceful use of atomic energy on behalf of their countries. This includes a strategic visions, documents on the serial construction of nuclear power units in India by using Russian technology. We can see the overall outlines, the plans for the construction of more than 12 nuclear power units in India, including the Kudankulam nuclear power plant in Tamil Nadu. Russia has already constructed 2 nuclear power plants at Kudankulam in 2013 and 2016, respectively. And the construction of the 3rd and 4th power units is underway. Deals of Kudankulam 5 and also 6 have also been signed. If we'll talk about the Russian viewpoints after the Crimea crisis in 2014, Russia is giving more focus and trying to turn to the east, and India could make a significant contribution to diversifying the geographical coverage of Russian energy supplies. As Russia's primary market, the EU turns to renewable energy. Russia needs new customers for its oil and gas exports. Investing in downstream assets in energy exports, such as India, can help secure new customers. Russia needs to find new markets for its gas as the EU seeks alternative sources of supply, and the United States became a gas supplier. For the result, the situation on the global energy market offers Russia a unique opportunity to diversify its energy exports with the help of India. Uh, Actually, my papers deals most of the part is recommendations, as my topic is in India Russia energy cooperation, the way ahead. My concluding part is India is the world's 3rd largest energy consumer and a major energy importer with a steadily growing demand. Russia is a key global producer and exporter of petroleum and natural gas. The two countries needs naturally complement each other. It is important from both the sides, the diplomatic and geopolitical perspectives. Russia has a vital role in ensuring India's energy security in the coming decade. India imports oil mostly from the volatile region of the Middle East. However, to sustain current high rates of growth, India needs to secure and diversify its energy sources. In other side, Russia is an obvious choice in this respect to give natural oil and gas to India. In second, importing liquefied natural gas (LNG) is the best alternative for India under existing conditions, and therefore carries great potential in furthering India-Russia energy ties. In third, it will see the swap deals. It is the another way to enhance cooperations. For instance, Russia could export oil to northern Iran. Then Iran could in turn deliver equal quantity to oil to India from its southern part. However, it must be noted that cooperation from third countries remains crucial, even though they are regarded as the best way for Russia to help India meet its gas requirements. Fourthly, Russian companies should consider Indian investors as potential partners in the development of the resources on the continental shelf of Russia, and the other had to recover reserves, especially considering the lack of Western financing. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bhagidhar Sethi, for highlighting some of the issues related to India-Russia energy cooperation. And as you pointed out towards the end, that India, and there can be a swapping kind of arrangement for energy cooperation. In fact, that arrangement was there during the Soviet period. and with Iraq. India used to, Soviet Union to Iraq, and Iraq used to supply to India. But somehow, today Iraq is in crisis, as you know, and with Iran, we have stopped taking any oil from Iran because of the sanction. Recently, the Trump, that maximum pressure sanction that he imposed, which is not agreed by any country. But somehow, India decided to not to import due to complications which might lead to with the United States relations in future. So that swapping may not be possible at this moment. But again, if the Chabahar port, and through Chabahar the link one to Afghanistan and the other one to north-south transport corridor, if that is developed, then the transport of oil is also possible, and the transport of goods from India is also possible. So, but again, recently in the Eastern Economic Forum, when Prime Minister Modi was invited, there also, there was an agreement that there'll be a route dedicated from Vladivostok to Chennai, for dedicated especially for the transport of energy. I don't know how that's going to work and what kind of cost. There'll be a lot of things involved in that, and it will take time. But you rightly pointed out that we have some good energy relationship in Sakhalin and also in Kudankulam nuclear energy. And now India is focusing too much on solar energy. So that is another area of cooperation which might emerge between the two countries, because although the European countries have taken the lead, but that is one aspect where the two countries can again explore the possibility of cooperation. But excellent presentation. Thank you so much, Bhagidhar. And you rightly flagged some of the issues related to energy cooperation. Now, as I have been told by the organizers, that we have to take a 5 minutes break for tea. Unfortunately, we will not be offering you tea. You go and prepare tea, please, for yourself. And then you please come back in 5 minutes. I'll be here, our team will be here, and then you can ask whatever questions that you have to the speakers. So thank you so much, all of you. Please take a break and come back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes sharp. So I think his name was Naresh. So he wanted to know that why the scholars are focusing too much on India, China, when the conference is about India and Russia. So any presenter, would you like to answer this question? Alexei, would you like to answer this question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a good question, but I think that we all realize that these days our bilateral partnership is unfortunately dependent on different sets of bilateral relationships, and these ones are not only India-China relationship, which is not in a good shape, I would say it this way. It's also US-Russia relationship, which is not getting better. It's also US-China relationship, which we see the trade war and different political differences between these two countries. So even though we would like to concentrate solely on bilateral relationship, on the state of our friendship and cooperation, it's simply impossible not to take into account what's happening between India and China.
Thank you, Alexei. Thank you. There is a question from you. The name is not given, but the question from Jawaharlal Nehru University. My question is to Alexei Zakharov, and the question is, since the establishment of PRC from 1949, it has projected itself as an aggressive power. My question is, did the Russians and its government truly moved on from the scare of Demensky Island conflict, or is it still having the rancor or plight reminiscence left among the people of Russia? Did you get the question?
Yeah, I'm reading it, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for the question. Well, I'm not an expert on Russia-China relations, but from what I read on our bilateral relationship, I think that the narrative is that page is turned over, and the scar is here. We can see. I think that it slightly is healed. So I think that maybe some section of people, not government, still recalls this moment of tension between India and between Russia and China. I'm sorry, but I think that the move from the government. I mean, the mood in the government is that we have to concentrate on the promoting bilateral ties, but not finding who was right and who was not, who was for whom it was beneficial or not. So I think that it's this page is turned over. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely fine. Another question is, I think, Nivedita, you can answer this question. How to control China and Pakistan to kind of, for India-Russia relationship? That is the question. I think you can answer it well. Rutuja can also try if she wants. Yes. So, Nivedita.
Yes, sir. So when we look at the Russia-Pakistan relations, I think this has already been discussed in detail a lot. That after Russia lifted its arms embargo in around 2000, somewhere in I think 2010, 2014, on arms sales towards Pakistan, it did sell Pakistan a few weaponry, but it was nothing that would help Pakistan counter India in any way. So, and after that, and since then, it's not like as if Russia has become the key supplier of arms to Pakistan. It was the arms sales were very less in number, and since then they've petered out. And I think just yesterday I read Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu assuring our defense minister that Russia won't be selling arms to Pakistan. So that relationship remains rather limited. In recent years, Russia's engagement towards Pakistan has been with a view towards its policy towards Afghanistan, because Russia has been trying to improve its presence. It has started the Moscow format of talks. And if a power wants to get involved in Afghanistan, then engagement with Pakistan is but natural. But I think till now, Russia has not taken any steps that in its relations with Pakistan that would be detrimental to its relationship with India. So I think, Indians do get a lot worried whenever the word Pakistan comes up. But as of now, I don't see any problematic relationship between Russia and Pakistan. Now, Russia and China is a completely different equation. And I understand that the Indians are worried about how close Russia is getting to China. But again, as I said in my presentation, Russia's geopolitical situation has emerged in such a way after 2014, after the Ukrainian crisis, the annexation of Crimea. The relations with West have hit a new low. And then it was followed by several events. There was the issue of the Skripal poisonings in the UK. Most recently, Germany is angry about the fact that Germany says that Alexei Navalny has been poisoned.
Please, just conclude, Nivedita, sorry.
Yes, sir, very quickly. And there was the issue of US presidential election interference. So all of these issues have led to almost complete breakdown of relations with the West. And most of the Russian scholars see this as a long-term event. And they don't see the US-Russia relations improving. As China has become their key partner economically, strategically. So that is something that we will have to understand, that China is Russia's key partner, and that Russia is not going to abandon China at least in the near to the short term.
Okay, Alexei, the last question, and after that we'll move to the next session. The last question, just in 30 seconds, please answer. Can Russia afford to give primacy to India over China? Just 30 seconds, Alexei Zakharov.
Briefly, I think that no, that's the answer, and I think that Russian government is trying to strike a balance between India and China, because it can't afford to forget about China and be friends only with India. To simply put that, I mean, it's clear. So unfortunately, for this moment, Russia cannot afford to give this kind of primacy.
Yes, thank you so much. I think I got your answer. So I think, keeping in mind the time, I'll move on to the second technical session. I'm leaving one or two questions, so please bear with me because of time issue. Next presenter is Maria Korbowska, and she is a research scholar from Moscow State Institute of International Relations, Magimu University, Moscow, Russia. Magimu, as you know, that is the place where they train the foreign diplomats, etc. So Magimu is a very good university. I've been there. So I would like to invite Maria Korbowska for her presentation on Indo-Russia educational cooperation. achievements and development prospects. So Maria, can you hear me? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear
Oh,
you.
lovely. So please start your presentation. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Can I show you online presentation? Can you allow me to do it?
Of course. Go ahead.
I just can't.
Sumant, you have to allow her to share the file.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I bring my warm greetings to you all. Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Maria Karbolska. I'm a third-year student at MGIMO University, Moscow, Russia. And it's an honor to have this opportunity to address such a distinguished audience, and I'm delighted to be here today to talk to you about one of the most pressing issues of our partnership. It is Indo-Russian educational cooperation. By the way, as the new school year in Russia has just started, it started a couple of days ago. This topic is quite timely, isn't it? Okay. To begin with, let me introduce my plan. I've divided my presentation into 5 main parts, so it's structured as follows. The first point, as you could see, is the introduction, where I'm going to prove educational cooperation plays one of the major roles in our cooperation. Then we'll move on to the point named common data, what obviously means I'll present key information on the issue. After it, we'll proceed to the major achievements we have already reached. Then I'll demonstrate what points still require our additional attention so as to turn these weaknesses into our prospects. And we'll finish it up drawing some conclusions from the data. And if you don't mind, please leave your questions till the end. So now we can start. As Benjamin Franklin once said, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. And it's difficult to disagree with this statement. And what's really interesting for us today is the fact that one of the most important benefits of education is that it can improve not only personal lives, but also contribute to the international cooperation. India and Russia have been cultivating their bilateral relations for lots of decades during their mutual history, and nowadays it's indispensable to admit that both countries have reached a new level of intensity and cooperation. Obviously, one of the crucial points in it is education. Therefore, in the 21st century, the non-governmental organizations of both countries are known to intensify their work on the implementation of educational and scientific projects. What for? Why is educational cooperation so significant for our countries? Here are the main reasons. The first one is internationalization of higher education and the increase in international students' mobility. The second one is enhancing the prestige of education in both countries. The third one is sharing and adopting new ideas that can improve the quality of educational service in both India and Russia. All these points are mutually beneficial and are highly likely to have an extraordinary positive impact on our bilateral relations as well as on the BRICS format. So now we can proceed to the next item of my presentation, number 2, common data. The information concerning Russia is in the upper right corner. The information concerning India is in the lower left corner. First of all, I'd like to say that international students nowadays concerning Russia, they can apply to 896 universities in 85 regions of Russia. And nowadays, Russia witnesses the influx of nearly 6,000 students from India every year, with at least 70% of them opting to study medicine. Concerning India, I'd like to say that nowadays about 30 or 50 Russian students come to get an education there every year. Among about 47,000 of international students. But now just keep these numbers in mind. I'm going to comment them on during my presentation. Now we can proceed any further. We can talk about achievements and weak points of these achievements, if they exist. The first achievement I'd like to show you is multiple educational programs for foreign students and educational exchange programs. They exist nowadays, and that's our achievements. So you can see on the screen the number of main universities taking part in such educational exchange programs, and I won't read them out loud. They are on the screen. But now I'd like to emphasize your attention on the weak side, on the weak side of such cooperation. Let's go back and see weak point. Such educational programs exist only at an interinstitutional level, and such situation hinder the development of our mutual educational programs, delegating authority to universities' administration, empowered to sign contracts with the international partners or not. Even existing global educational systems, for instance, the BRICS Network University, cannot be considered quite efficient because the number of member universities, the number of institutions involved is limited, and Indian universities are not presented within this network, while about 39% of the global number of students are studying in the BRICS countries. So you can see this global program seems underestimated. It is also indispensable to cultivate inter-school cooperation in order to contribute to the awareness of the issue and revealing contemporary opportunities and options to teenagers so that they could choose alternatives. Here is the feedback of a teenager who participated in such an educational program. So I suppose it would be great. However, unfortunately, nowadays, the number of inter-school cooperation programs remains disappointingly small. So now we can proceed with the achievement number 2. You can see it on the screen. Cooperation in medicine, IT, and language is prioritized. Let's move on to the data, to the common data. So cooperation in medicine and STEM, it's a huge amount of fields connected with mathematics, informatics, and so on, are extremely well developed. Russian universities are known for their courses in aviation, engineering, nuclear physics, journalism, to name a few. For Indian students, medicine is one of the top choices. And at least 70% of Indian students coming to Russia opt for medicine. This proportion also involves some troubles. Obviously, cooperation in these fields, in other fields such as history, international relations, and so on, lack our attention and lag behind. So let's go back and see achievement number 3. Increasing number of students taking part in the above-mentioned programs. For sure, it's an achievement. According to the statistical data, let's see them again. The number of Indian students entering Russian universities has almost doubled over the last years, from about 3,000 to 6,000 now. So what's the weak point of such a cooperation? Absence of such an opportunity for lots of students due to their specialization or language they learn. For instance, lots of Russian students studying Indian official languages apart from Hindi or English face difficulties when joining an educational exchange program. Besides, as demonstrated earlier, additional concerns can be raised regarding the following disproportion. About 6,000 Indian students enter Russian universities every year against 30 or 50 Russians annually becoming Indian university students. So we need to work further on this matter. Achievement number 4. Due to the continual activity of various Indo-Russian educational centers, for instance, Cultural Center of Jawaharlal Nehru in Moscow, Russian Center for Science and Culture in New Delhi, etc., which often organize different events and conferences, creating and maintaining the both countries' good image, Indo-Russian bilateral relations are being deepened. There is a Russian Science Center and Russian Cultural Center located in Chennai. And Dr. MGR Educational and Research Institute has a number of Russian medical students due to the foreign exchange programs with Stavropol State Medical Academy. In addition, apart from the events regularly held by such institutions, a wealth of other activities also take place, and such examples are numerous. For instance, Indo-Russian Youth Forum. Let's have a look. Held in 2015, Indo-Russian Conference on Integrated Water Management, which took place in 2018. Our today online conference, why not? It's still the same. However, there is a big point as well. Let's have a look. The current state of cooperation in education between the two states cannot compete with countries such as the USA or the UK. Indo-Russian educational cooperation is not so developed as compared to their cooperation with these countries. Let's have a look at the educational cooperation between India and the US. According to the Open Doors report, over 2 lakh Indian students come to the USA for education. In other words, Indian students make up nearly 18% of all international students there. Then we can proceed to another achievement, achievement number 5. A big plus for Indian graduates and for Russian as well, in the fact that it is not needed to legalize the diploma. It is a really extraordinary step forward. A bilateral treaty was concluded between Russia and India to abolish this procedure. Nowadays, Russian document on higher education and Indian as well is automatically recognized by all Indian or Russian institutions. So now we've seen all the achievements and big points. Let's proceed to the prospects.
Maria, could you just come to quickly to last conclusion?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So our prospects for today, first of all, is Russian-India educational cooperation, which should shift from interinstitutional to interstate level. More educational exchange programs should be created, and the existing programs should be improved and made more available so as to attract more international students. And my conclusion is as follows. In the 21st century, the non-governmental organizations of both countries are known to intensify their work on the implementation of educational and scientific projects. And significant progress is viewed to be made. However, some weak points in Indo-Russian educational partnership still require our attention, and they can be transformed into prospects, bringing their fruits into the near future, due to the promising promotion of dialogue and partnership between India and Russia. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria Kovskaya. Questions will come later, but you made an excellent presentation and you highlighted the kind of cooperation which is happening in terms of educational exchanges between the two countries. You also pointed out what kind of cooperation is possible in future between the two countries. One issue is that there are very few students from Russia coming to India. So maybe when in Q&A you can answer it later. So, but the question and answer comes later after the presentation of all the participants. Thank you so much, Maria. Now I'll move on to Tableen Kaur Malik. Dr. Tableen Kaur Malik, are you there? Can you hear me?
Sir, actually, our network is issue. He just called me. It's just
Okay.
call to the next participant. He will be there.
Okay. So Dr. Tableen Kaur Malik is not here. So I'll move on to next presentation, which is by Mr. Kashyap Pathak. Kashyap is a research scholar in Center for Central Eurasian Studies, University of Mumbai, India. He'll be speaking on bilateral trading option, a new hope to improve Russian diplomatic partnership, Russia-India diplomatic partnership. So, Mr. Kashyap Pathak, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am there. Am I audible?
Yes, you very much. So please go ahead and make your presentation for 12 minutes roughly.
Sure, sir. I will try my best. Can I please share my screen?
Of course, yeah. Go ahead.
Sir, I cannot share my screen. Can
now
I?
You can try this.
You can try again.
Yeah. Is my screen visible?
No, I cannot see your screen, Kashyap.
Can you please take another presentation? Meanwhile, I will change my system.
Okay. So what I do that Kashyap is having some issue with PPT. So I move on to the next presenter, and the name of the next presenter is Mr. Chitkela Rakesh. Chitkela Rakesh is a research scholar in Central University of Kerala, India, and he would be speaking on defense and security cooperation between India and Russia. So, Mr. Chitkesha Rakesh, are you there?
Yes, I'm there, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so go ahead and make your presentation in roughly 12 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Fellow scholars and distinguished dignitaries and the organizers of the conference, a pleasant evening all. So as my presentation focuses on the defense and the security cooperation between India and Russia. Russia has been a long-standing and time-tested partner for India, and development of India and Russia has been a key pillar of India's foreign policy. Since the signing of the declaration on the India and Russia strategic partnership in October 2000, India and Russia ties have acquired a qualitatively a new character, with enhanced levels of cooperation in almost all the areas bilateral relationship, including political, security, trade, economy, defense, science and technology, and culture. During the visit of Russian President to India in December 2010, the strategic partnership was elevated to the level of special and privileged strategic partnership between two nations. So now focusing on the defense and the security cooperation, India has wide-ranging cooperation with Russia in the field of defense especially, and has become largest arms importer from Russia. India and Russia military technical cooperation has evolved from a bilateral framework to the one involving joint research developments and production of advanced defense technologies and systems. BrahMos missile system as well as the licensed production in India of Su-30 aircraft and T-90 tanks are some of the examples. During the 17th annual summit, both the sides concluded agreement on supply of S-400 air defense system and construction of frigates under the project 1135.6 Talwar class frigates. Shareholders agree on the formation of joint venture to manufacture Ka-226T helicopters in India. The two countries also hold exchanges and training and exercises between their armed forces annually, that is Indra Navy and Indra 2016, etc. India and Russia made conscious efforts to increase defense ties. India recently is leaning towards United Nations for its defense requirements. But India and Russia defense relations is going to the next level with the ways defense deals. India is in the process of modernizing its armed forces, keeping in pace with its biggest rival. China's assertive behavior in South China and growing presence in the Indian Ocean. And here we have some of the deals and the defense military equipment details. T-90. India plans to have 29 regiments of T-90s by 2020 with 45 combat tanks and 17 training and replacement tanks per regiment for 62 total age. And another one is the BMP-3. The Indian trainer manufacturer Tesmaco Rail, an engineering company, has signed a memorandum of understanding with Russian Export, which is one of the chief exporters of Russia. This agreement was signed to facilitate the transfer of Russian technology during the implementation of joint projects. This involves the repair and modernization of armored vehicles currently being used in the Indian Army. The other one is AS-400. Indian Air Force will acquire 5 firing units of the AS-400 long-range surface-to-air missiles system between 2017 to 2022. This AS-400 tram region is capable of interrupting and destroying airborne targets at a distance of up to 400 kilometers and can simultaneously be used up to 6 targets. The other one is Su-30MKI. India's Ministry of Defense has initiated Russia to modernize 194 Su-30MKI fighters and raise them to the level of 5th generation craft in a deal worth $8 billion. Another one we have is Su-15. FGFE fighters developed based on Russian prospective airborne complex of frontline aviation. In accordance with Indian science technical requirements, in particular, the design and development of a two-seater version of aircraft, the integration of an advanced mission with increased transfer plan at the request of India. The other one is Tu-22. The India's Ministry of Defense have sought to buy 4 strategic Tu-22 M3 bombers and other latest high-tech weaponry from Russia. Another one we have is KA-226. India and Russia to jointly manufacture KA-MOV-226 helicopter under Make in India project. The other one we have is nuclear power AC. India Navy's second indigenous aircraft carrier, INS Vishal, will be a 65,000-ton nuclear power behemoth, capable of carrying up to 55 aircraft, and it will be more than 300 meters long, making it almost double to the size of India's first indigenous carrier, INS Vikram. And the other one we have is Akula 11. After acquiring the Akula 11 class SN Nerpa from Russia on the lease for 10 years, the Indian Navy gained the ability to promote a long-range underwater escort for their carriers and destroyers. The INS Chakra is modified for Indian needs and carries a mix of 36 torpedoes and KLUB anti-ship missiles which can be fired from 8 into 533 meters torpedo tubes. If all this is some of the deals and other defense equipments from Russia, and now let's see the recent significant visit of our defense minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh. Mr. Rajnath Singh has visited Moscow to take part in the symbolic occasion of 25th Victory Day celebrations, and even our Indian military contingent also has participated in the Victory Day parade too. Whereas the West leaders have been a part of it because of their standoff with Russia. And the presence of defense military and participation in the parade is clearly a declaration of our support and friendship towards Russia. And all these illustrates the special and privileged strategic partnership between two nations. And our defense minister has been reassured regarding its deliveries to meet its demand, and it would do its best, said by the Russian officials. The other thing, as India is now heading towards United States and getting close to the United States for its different requirements, India cannot drift away from Russia because it's not possible in any of this geographical science or strategical science or political science. Because Russia is a very close neighbor, which is no difference at all. And India and Russians help in most of the areas. If India want to maintain the strategic autonomy and independence of action, we cannot do so by drifting away from one power to another, but should manage all these powers, especially Russia and US. And even most of the Indian companies also investing around $15 billion in Russia for hydrocarbon, where Russia is the superpower of hydrocarbon. And even most of the Russian companies also have invested in India too. And India's import arms from Russia is around 58%.
Mr.
I think this
Rakesh,
is quite enough to say about the
Rakesh,
relations
Rakesh,
between the India and Russia.
Mr. Rakesh,
And finally, yes, sir, concluding.
conclude, yeah, please.
So finally, coming to the conclusion, the Indian-Russian relations had a long history of trust, and the main basis of this relationship of close convergence of interest and had nothing against to each other. And the defense ties between India and Russia are in a good place for now, and it has been a historical relationship and strong and strategic that is going to go to the newer heights of cooperation and development.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rakesh Chitkela. You highlighted one of the most important aspects of cooperation between India and Russia, the defense cooperation, the security cooperation, which is actually the mainstay of India-Russia cooperation. And over the years, one thing which Russia is considered the most reliable partner for the defense supplies to India, despite the fact that we are trying to diversify, and in the last 10 years or so, India has acquired nearly $15 billion weapons from United States and France, as you know, because of Rafale purchase and otherwise also. So, and Israel. These are the three other countries from which India is trying to acquire weapons apart from Russia. But again, Russia is considered the most reliable partner, and there is absolutely no doubt about it. Yeah, but the competition is going to grow in the future when other partners, also come into in the market. And one of the reasons why US is very much interested in India is also the defense purchases that India is going to make in terms of acquiring the fifth generation aircraft, other weapons, tanks, missile shields, etc. One of the issues that come, that you cannot cooperate with two major countries at the same time, because India has signed the interoperability, the communication agreement, etc., with the United States. So there is a pressure on India that India should cut down its ties with other countries, especially Russia. So the balancing becomes the important game of our diplomacy in terms of cooperating between the two countries. But you pointed out very rightly that how this cooperation has grown over the time. Thank you so much, Rakesh. Thank you, and that was very nice presentation. And now I'll request the previous speaker. Are you ready, Mr. Kashyap Pathak?
Yes, sir, I am in.
Okay, so you can start your presentation. Kashyap is a research scholar at Center for Central Eurasian Studies, University of Mumbai, and he would be speaking on bilateral trading option, a new hope to improve Russian diplomatic partnership. So, Kashyap, take 10 to 12 minutes and try to be a little quicker.
Yes, sir, sure. I will try my best.
Thank you.
Sir, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Good evening, friends. First of all, I would like to thank Eurasian Forum to allow me to speak and present my paper on this platform. and also Professor Sanjay Deshpande, who gave me an opportunity to come on this platform. So this is my topic, bilateral trading option, a new Indo-Russian diplomatic partnership. So this is the theme of my presentation. Initially, I will start with geopolitical tensions between India and Russia, the current geopolitical situations. After that, the latest India-Russia defense partnership. Followed by, I will throw a light on Indo-Russia trading scenario, the current trading scenario, comparing with the trading scenario which we had during Soviet days. Then steps taken by both the parties to improve bilateral trade relations. And last but not the least, conclusion of my research findings and with some suggestions. So coming to geopolitical tensions between India and Russia. Coming to the fact, in the year 2000, no doubt currently Russia, not only currently, but since historically, since the independence of India, Russia is the largest trading weapons trading partner or defense trading partner of India. But in the year 2014, US was the largest arms supplier of India, surpassing Russia. It was just for a period of 1 year. After that, in the year 2016, India and US signed a LMOA, which enables India to gain logistical support from USA in the field of defense. Followed by this event, India and USA jointly organized military exercise like Yudh Abhyas and Vajra Prahar. After this event, 2+2 dialogues in the year 2018 with USA, and followed by India signed a COM-CARSA agreement in the year 2018 with United States of America. So this COM-CARSA agreement will enable India to access US's defense communication equipments in Indian South Indian, or maybe we can say Indian Ocean region, to counter Chinese diplomacy in Indian Ocean region. Maybe we can say Chinese presence. We can keep an eye on Chinese presence in Indian Ocean region. Lastly, India's entry in Quadcom group of Indo-Pacific region, that is USA, India, Australia, and Japan. These factors made some tensions in the mind of Russians, stating that India is moving towards, or India is lining towards USA. Likewise, Russia's military ties and defense deal with Pakistan, no doubt it was to a very minimal extent, but still it created some negative thoughts in the mind of Indians. The same way, Russia delivered S-400 missile defense system in the year 2018 to China. This created another concern in the mind of Indians. Next, Russia supported China's Belt and Road Initiative. This is very sensible topic in the for Indians, as this part of this Belt and Road Initiative passes from disputed region of India and Pakistan, that is Gilgit-Baltistan. Owing to this reason, India didn't took part in Belt and Road Initiative and straight away denied to China that we cannot be part of this initiative. Based on the recent events, Kavkaz, let me first take about the Kavkaz military exercise, which Russia is going to plan in the month of September this month. This exercise will be held from 15 to 26 nearly 18 countries are going to participate, and India was also invited in this particular military exercise. However, India denied to take part in this exercise because of straight away telling that because of Chinese, Pakistan, and Turkey's presence in that particular exercise. However, India on its side gave the statement that we cannot attend the exercise keeping in mind the pandemic of coronavirus, being on a neutral side. Now, last point I would like to highlight about Chabad port, which is in Iran. The port is almost, the situation is such that it is almost out of the control of India. It is so said, there are many rumors around the market that China is about to invest nearly $400 billion in Iranian market. If the deal goes finalized, India, there are 100%, there are maybe 100% or maybe many more chances that India might lose Chabad port, and so the INSTC, which was the dream of India to connect Russia and Russia, Central Asia, and the entire Europe with the help of international North-South transport corridor. Now coming to the defense ties between India and Russia. As I already said, India and Russia traditionally have a good and very magnificent defense ties. Recently, coming to the soon after the, soon after the Soviet disintegration, if we look at the statistics of defense equipments which India imported from Soviet Union and the newly born Russia, it was around 85% of defense equipments that India purchased from Russia. While the current scenario, Russia commands only nearly 57% of the total arm import from Russia. Arm import from India, arm imported by India. So this statement clearly states that India's dependency on Russia has gradually come down to over a period of time. Besides, India and Russia also. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, but could you please
yes, sir. Besides India, yes. Besides, India also did a trial service exercise under Indra format. It is ongoing. It is the naval exercise is under progress between India and Russia in Andaman Sea, while Defense Minister Shri Rajnath Singh is in Moscow. On the other hand, Russia promised to deliver S-400 missile defense system on time despite the pandemic scenario. Besides this, joint projects to develop and manufacture BrahMos missile, PS-90 engines, and India to manufacture spare parts for Russian carriers. And there are a number of defense deals in pipeline between India and Russia.
Are you done? Kashyap, are you done?
Trade scenario between India and Russia. So this graph clearly shows that our trade during Soviet period, though the figures are almost, figure of trade has increased drastically. However, the share of Soviet Union and post-Soviet Russia after the disintegration for the period of 5 years, it contributed to nearly 15 to 17% of India's total foreign trade. However, the current scenario, India hardly trades somewhere around 1.5 to 2% trade with Russia. So coming towards the bilateral trade
Kashyap, conclude, please.
Yes,
Let's
sir, please.
come to the
Just give me
conclusion.
2 minutes. Yes, yes, sir. So this is a bilateral, bilateral trade scenario of India. We failed to achieve our bilateral trade, and on the other hand, India and Russia successfully achieved investment target of $30 billion in 2017. However, this target is revised to $15 billion by 2025. So these are the steps taken by India and Russia to improve our bilateral relations. I will quickly take some few points from this. Russia strongly backed India in the permanent membership of SCO, permanent membership of United Nations Security Council and lifetime and full-time member of SCO. There is a bilateral deal between India and Russia to develop a Far East Russia and Far East Russia, where India proposed to grant $1 billion US dollar line of credit. India and Russia, we are going to the deal has been signed to construct 12 nuclear power plants in India by next 20 years. Meanwhile, India, Russia, and Bangladesh had a trilateral agreement to establish Rupur nuclear power plant. Lastly, Russia offered intervention to establish peace in Indo-China border in sideline of G20 summit to be held in Riyadh in the month of November 2020. So coming to the conclusion, firstly, I would like to tell that despite Russia the intervention to neutralize the situation between India and China, it is not possible for India to take this help from Russia, as India and China. Firstly, India and China have already had an agreement that any issue they will be sought out bilaterally. No third country can intervene in any bilateral issues. Secondly, if Russia sides China's, if Russia intervenes in this issue, Russia can never serve a neutral decision maker in the issue of India and China, as on one side Russia is heavily dependent on China for its goods and services, while on the other hand India is dependent on USA, not USA. On the other hand, India is on non-alignment movement, where India will not take a side of either of the superpower or either of the nations. India will look only towards its policy, which is beneficial for India and Indians. So second, coming to this issue, there is a little drift in bilateral relations between India and Russia. There is a clash.
Kashyap,
Yes,
just 30 seconds. Conclude, please. There is no time.
Yes, sir. So we can work on these areas. There is a scope of cooperation to jointly work on India's dream project, that is one sun, one planet, one grid. This is a new dimension to work together. There can be a pipeline from Russia to India. There can be a bilateral trade needs achieved. We can do a bilateral trade with the modes of ruble-rupee trade, which will be beneficial for the economy of both the nation. And there are some areas where we can closely work with each other, like information and intelligence sharing, educational sector, space technology, aviation, high-speed railway, etc. So this is all from my side. And also we can have a bypass route for INSTC, like we can have a maritime full-fledged maritime route from Vladivostok to not only to Chennai, but also towards Visakhapatnam and Kolkata, which will serve to the entire eastern part of India. That's all from my side. Thank you so much for patiently hearing me.
Thank you, Mr. Kashyap Pathak, and I'm sorry that I had to stop you because of the shortage of time.
No
There
problem,
are
sir.
a few scholars still left, and
Yes,
I
yes, sir, no
have to
problem.
do justice to them also. I'm really sorry that I had to intervene and stop you.
No problem, sir.
You
It's
made
okay.
a very detailed presentation. You made a very passionate and confident presentation. I could see that, passion in your presentations. Very nice. Thank you so much. And now I'll go directly to Dr.
Thank you, sir.
Tavleen Kaur Malik, and she has joined this. She couldn't come earlier, but now she's ready, I believe. So, Ms. Kaur Malik, I would request you to be as brief as possible because there are two other speakers, and I would like to finish everything on time. So, Tavleen,
Yes, sir.
yeah, just take your
Yes,
time.
sir. Sir, I would like to share my screen.
Yeah.
Is the screen visible, sir?
Yes, I think, yeah. Yeah, it is visible. You make it slideshow and it would be very nice.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening, respected organizers and listeners. Today, I, Dr. Tavleen Kaur Malik from International Institute of Health Management and
Tavleen, your voice is not very clear, so you have to speak a little loud.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure, sir, sure.
This is fine.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
I, Dr. Tavleen Kaur Malik from International Institute of Health Management Research is going to present paper on strengthening public health system in Russia. Public health system in India and Russia. I will begin by explaining the public health system in Russian Federation and India. The public health system in the Russian Federation is founded on the Soviet Sanitary Epidemiological Service. The service is organized hierarchically from the municipal through the regional to the federal level and is headed by the chief state sanitary doctor of the Russian Federation. Environmental health and communicable disease control functions, as well as their notification and surveillance of communicable diseases, are conducted by centers of hygiene and epidemiology and their laboratories under Rospotrebnadzor. Each hospital employs public health doctors, epidemiologists who track and report all the infectious diseases occurring in their facilities. Most other preventive services such as immunization, antenatal care, and family planning services form part of primary care services. Opportunistic screening is a significant part of the general medicine service provided at the primary care level through the periodic health checks that large section of population are expected to attend. Moving on to the public health system in India, which focuses on improving people's health and well-being. It is developed in such a way that it responds to people expectations and provide protection against the costs of ill health. Healthcare delivery system in India is developed at three levels: primary, secondary, and tertiary. The main principles of primary healthcare are equitable distribution, community participation, intersectoral coordination, and appropriate technology. The secondary healthcare deals with more complex problems, provide mainly curative care through community health centers and district hospitals. Tertiary care provides super specialty care through medical colleges, super specialty hospitals at central or regional level. The activities of public health are planned, implemented, monitored, and evaluated at center under Ministry of State, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and at state under Ministry of State. These are the health indicators of India and Russia. Now, health indicators are most important to evaluate the effectiveness of health system of any country. Healthcare expenditure to GDP percent in India is 4 and Russia 6.3. Crude death rate in India is 6.2% and Russia 11%. It was observed that as Russia increased the expenditure on health, the crude death rate from 16.1% in 2005 declined to 11% in 2020. Life expectancy in India is 67.9 years and Russia 73.2. Maternal mortality ratio in India is 113 maternal deaths per 1 lakh live births, and Russia is 17 maternal deaths per 1 lakh live births. Infant mortality ratio in India is 32 per 1,000 live births, and Russia is 6 infant deaths per 1,000 live births. And lastly, the institutional deliveries, that is delivery taking place at healthcare facilities. In India, it is 88.7% and Russia 99%. Moving on to the issues of healthcare system in Russia, which include factors such as reduced influence and control of modern politics, lack of qualified specialists, lack of adequate funding for the healthcare system, problem in human resource policies such as salary level, working conditions, and lastly, poor quality and degraded personal training. Now, the issues of healthcare system in India. Firstly, lack of awareness, which is probably due to low education status, poor functional literacy, and low priority for health in the population. Lack of accessibility, which is determined by factors such as utilization of healthcare services, aspects of availability and supply. But with the rise of telemedicine and health and wellness centers in India, these issues are addressed, but unfortunately, they still persist. Absence or the human power crisis in healthcare. In a news report dated August 7, 2019, it showed that the doctor people ratio in India is 0.69 doctors per 1,000 people. Next, affordability or the cost of healthcare. It was seen that almost 75% of healthcare expenditure comes from pockets of household, which is also called as OOP, that is out of pocket expenditure, and catastrophic healthcare costs, which is an important cause of impoverishment. And lastly, lack of accountability. Now, before moving to the need of collaboration, I would like to quote Napoleon Hill's word. He said that it is literally true that you can succeed best and quickest by helping others to succeed. Therefore, the collaboration between both the countries would ensure universal health coverage as well as achievement of sustainable development goals. Along with this, development of national health care and efficient reduction in morbidity, mortality from cancer, cardiovascular diseases, diseases associated with metabolic process such as diabetes, obesity, communicable maternal newborn care, epidemics, current situation of COVID-19, and many other conditions. Now, Russia has always been a boon companion to India. Strengthening public health system in India and collaboration with Russia will eventually benefit both the countries. Now, reflecting upon the strategies for collaboration. Firstly, health facility strengthening through mentoring and training of health workers for management of communicable, non-communicable diseases, maternal, newborn care, epidemics, current situation of COVID-19, and many other conditions. The engagement and commitment of both countries is extremely crucial for strengthening public health system. Next, promoting exchange programs for medical students. Now, I would like to quote here that in a telephonic conversation between Prime Minister and President Putin of Russia on COVID-19, the Prime Minister appreciated the cooperation of Russian authorities in ensuring the well-being of Indian students in Russia, and President Putin assured all help in this regard. The countries to invest in dealing health situations in aspirational districts or regions. Lastly, involving in trade agreements such as providing health service delivery in exchange of pharmaceuticals and medical equipments. During the visit of Prime Minister to Vladivostok in September 2019, on 20th India-Russian Annual Summit, both the countries committed to intensify development of high-tech products in spheres such as telecommunication, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, pharmacy, and others. Also, they agreed to improve the structure.
Tavleen, can you come to conclusion now? Tavleen, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. To improve the structure of trade in goods and services. Now, I would like to end by quoting Henry Ford, who said, "Coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is a success." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tavleen Kaur Malik. It was very nice, and I had to intervene. I had to make you really, really fast, and I apologize for that. But given the time constraints, I have to rush. But you made a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. And some of the questions.
Thank you, sir.
Now I have Dr. Aishwarya Nagarajan. Aishwarya, are you there?
Hello, sir. Good
Yeah.
evening.
So,
Unfortunately, I am not able to switch on my camera, but
okay.
I would require permissions to share my screen, please.
You will get it. Sumant, can you allow her to share her screen? Aishwarya would be speaking on case management of COVID-19 in India and Russia. Aishwarya, I have to make a small request to you. On that.
Definitely, sir. I know your request.
It's try to be as short as possible, but at the same time as compact as possible.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Yeah.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Thank you. A very good evening to all the attendees of this wonderful virtual meet. And I am Dr. Aishwarya from IIHMR Delhi, and I am glad to present my paper on case management of COVID-19 in India and Russia. So, as we all know that the novel coronavirus has caused major havoc at a global level, the WHO declared this outbreak as a public health emergency of international concern on 30th January, but subsequently declared it as a pandemic on March of 11th. The disease epidemiology, just a short introduction on that would be that it is the causative agent is a zoonotic source, which is related to a bat origin SARS-like coronavirus, and the incubation period is 5.1 days, and it ranges from about 2 to 14 days. The precise interval during which the individual with COVID-19 is infected is uncertain yet. And the WHO has given, time to time, it has given guidelines for the management of the pandemic. However, all partner countries are allowed to adapt and modify to their own strategies for the management of the same. So this is the case management, WHO case definition for COVID-19. I am sure many would have already known this, but just to give a brief idea, the suspected case would be someone who has a patient with acute respiratory illness, with a travel history, and or it would be someone with a patient with acute respiratory illness and having contact with probable or a confirmed case of COVID-19, or a patient with severe acute respiratory illness and absence of any alternative diagnosis that fully explains the clinical presentation. A probable case would be someone who has been from with whom testing for is unconclusive, and or a person who has who could not have any test done, and a person who with a confirmed case would be someone who has been tested positive in the laboratory confirmation, whether or not he may, irrespective of the fact that he may or may not show clinical presentation. So this is the current number of cases in India as well as Russia. This is the latest data taken from the WHO website as well as Arogya Setu app for India. And the case management in India, ICMR has been following these guidelines. And for mild cases, the patient with any uncomplicated upper respiratory infection could be managed in a COVID care center or a home subject with home quarantine. A moderate case is someone who has pneumonia with no signs of severe disease, can be managed at a dedicated COVID care center, COVID health center. And a severe case would be someone who would be having probably severe pneumonia, sepsis, septic shock, ARDS, and that person would have to be treated in a dedicated COVID center. So apart from this, I would also like to say that there are about 7,740 facilities that have been identified for these purposes. And there's another category of facility which is called the Dedicated COVID Care Center. That's the DCCC. And these are only these are assigned for mild or very mild cases or COVID suspect cases. And these are makeshift facilities which are provided throughout the state and union territories in India, which for example, hospitals or hotels, schools, etc. So the sample collection and testing has been done in India as these are the numbers. India uses the strategy called test, track and treat. And starting from a single lab in Pune, it has come up to 1,524 labs today. And these are the types of tests which are done. That's the real-time reverse transcriptase PCR test, a TrueNat or a CBNat testing. Coming to case management that has been done in Russia. Russia's early response measures were included shutting down its 2,600-mile border with China as early as 30th January and setting up quarantine zones, which have contributed to the delay of the full-blown outbreak. Testing and identification of cases, tracing contacts, isolation, and all measures recommended by the WHO were all in place at the time. And social distancing was also started very relatively early. Moscow has reacted with a citywide quarantine from March 30th, followed by all other states. The strategies used by Russia, the health system has stepped up by strengthening its disease surveillance system, widespread testing, combined with contact tracing has been in designated centers. PPE kits have been made available, and the government has leveraged the private sector for swift manufacture of ventilators and other equipments. And for effective communication with the public, continuous online education programs and mass media's efforts have also been done. This is my last slide, and I would like to talk about the vaccine that Russia has come up with. So Russia is among the first country to develop the Sputnik V vaccine for the coronavirus, and it has been developed in the Gamaleya National Research Institute of Epidemiology and Microbiology. And Russian researchers informed that presently the vaccine is in the phase 3 of the clinical trial, and 4,000 people in 45 medical centers have been participating in the randomized double-blinded placebo-controlled trial. And Mr. Rajesh Bhushan, that's the Union's Health Secretary of India, has said that both India and Russia are in communication for the production of the vaccine. And Dr. Vinod Paul will be examining the suggestions for the potential collaborations. And also the CEO of Russian Direct Investment Fund has said that yes, the production of the vaccine is an important issue, and we look into the Indian drug producers and co-partners, as we believe India is capable of producing the Gamaleya Institute vaccine. And it is important to say that these partnerships should produce a vaccine that enables us to cover the demand that we have received. So I would like to conclude by saying that yes, there's a lot of potential, and bilateral trade relationships are very good between India and Russia. We are hopeful for a good future. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Aishwarya Nagarajan.
Thank you very much. Yes.
And it was very detailed, and I had to cut down because of the time limit, but your arguments are very solid. And you ended with a very optimistic note that there is a potential for cooperation, and the vaccine is also coming. All of us are badly looking for that vaccine.
Hopeful, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And finally, we have the last but not the least, of course, presenter today, Ms. Sofia Kutipova. She is a research scholar, Moscow State Institute of International Relations. Again, Magimu University. Magimu is one of the best universities in Russia, located in Moscow. I've been there twice, thrice. She'll be speaking on Indo-Russian scientific cooperation, prospects and challenges. Sofia, I would like to request you to be as short and compact as possible. That's my only request. I'm leaving it up to you. Thank you so much.
Yes, sure. Good evening. I'm delighted to perform today before such a distinguished audience, and I'm very excited because it's my first time, my first participation in a conference. So I would like to share my screen.
Yes.
Okay, I have a
Allow her to share.
Yes.
Yes. So as it was mentioned already, my topic is Indo-Russian scientific cooperation, and I would like to analyze the whole topic, its prospects and challenges. I won't go into details about the achievement, the particular researches Indian and Russian scientists are carrying, but I will make a whole look, more broad view on this topic. And first of all, I would like to give a motivation of my choice of topic. I consider that nowadays science is one of the most important important fields where cooperation can be carried out, because a lot because modern economists are usually classifying sciences and technology as one of the most important type of resources, and science is gradually becoming a dominant factor in economic growth. Also, as the experience of Cold War showed us, the rivalry in scientific field might be dangerous and even exhausting for the states. So that's why the cooperation in this field is so important, and it can bring effectiveness, trustful and friendly relations. And that's the contents of my presentation. There will be in 3 parts, and I will proceed to the first one, uniting factors. So what do we have in common, Russians and Indian researchers? First of all, we have a long-term partnership experience, which is very important because it traces back to 1970s, and its apogee was in the next decade. So nowadays we have relatively high level of trust between our countries. Also, there are several treaties which give us a legal framework for the collaboration of our scientists. The relationships in this sphere are well institutionalized, which is the second feature. So there are several institutions which provide exchange, organize scientific seminars and workshops and so on. Also, we have also another feature is our foreign policy orientation. So India is known for its multifaceted policy. So this country does not concentrate on one particular partner. So this country can freely collaborate with Russia. So can Russia do? Because it has traditionally built friendly relationships with Asian countries, since Russia is the descendant of the former USSR, and it was USSR's feature of foreign policy to develop relationships with country of non-alignment movement and other developing countries. One more common feature we have is that a state is the main actor in scientific field. So government is the one who carries out the majority of resources and is the major financial resource. It's on the one hand, it's a good point because it's easier to build government-to-government interaction, and it's well organized. But on the other hand, we should also try to motivate entrepreneurs to be a financial source and to provide their support and help, and to apply the results of scientific researches in their production and in their businesses. Well, the next part of my presentation is prospects of partnership. So what are the most prospective fields of study? But let's begin, or let's observe a shift in the fields of collaboration. In the epoch of the USSR, the main fields of collaboration were solar energy, anti-corrosion, metal protection, metallurgy-related fields, meteorology, oceanography, etc. But nowadays, our scientists pay more attention to biotechnology, razor technologies, and we have achievements in this field. Also computing systems, geophysical industry, and earth sciences. Traditionally, the most relevant sphere is energy and also space civil cooperation. And by the way, India and Russia have a treaty. Russia will train Indian cosmonauts for mission in 2022. And also some further goals which were stated in 20th Indo-Russian Summit in Vladivostok in 2019. States expressed their commitment to intensify development of high-tech products in telecommunications, robotics, artificial intelligence, nanotechnologies, pharmacy, and also reinforce cooperation in electronic systems design and manufacturing, supercomputing, software development, and network security. So, and also the states are planning to cooperate in Arctic region to investigate biodiversity and repercussion of climate change in this region. And the last part is major challenges. First of all, we can observe a lack of information about joint projects among entrepreneurs and even among scientific world itself. Why is it a problem? First of all, the entrepreneurs should be well informed about the project which are going to be developed, because they can be a source of support, first of all, financial support. They can be the demandants of the product, of the scientific product. They can apply them to their businesses, as I've said previously. And the scientists also should be well informed, because they should take part in joint projects more actively, and they should be aware of the capacities of each other. So the second point is related to the first one. The number of scientific exchanges and joint events is insufficient, and these scientific events are not held at regular basis. So that's why its consequence probably is lack of information, and they are really deeply correlated. And we should work on this and make scientific events more regular, scientific exchanges more regular, and so on. What ways of cooperation can we build? First of all, more seminars, more workshops, joint projects, exchanges of scientific personnel, fellowships provided to Russian or Indian researchers to work in Indian or Russian laboratories and in industrial units. So to conclude, I'd like to point out that there are really positive prospects of our cooperation in this field, because there are a lot of points in common and a high level of trust between our countries, well-organized infrastructure. So a lot of positive aspects. But we have both Indian and Russian scientists have to work, have to do further work to overcome the challenges they face. So thank you a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Sofia Kutepova. You made a very good, very compact presentation, excellent articulation, and you raised very valid points about lack of information and insufficient exchanges which take place between scientific communities of the two countries, and how that is leading to some kind of gap in the kind of gap in the exchange of information which used to take place during the Soviet period. So thank you so much. You made an excellent presentation. Now we have come to the conclusion of all the presenters. Now what I request on the audience, whoever wants to ask questions, so quickly, please, either you ask it directly or you please type in the chat box and I'll read it out for you. In meanwhile, by the time you could type, I'll raise one or two questions which were raised by the earlier, probably the other audience. One question is, Indian ISRO plans to build its own space station and a network of military satellites to cover globally in the next decade. How is the Russian Roscosmos is playing an important role to promote India's space exploration? So basically the question is about the space cooperation between the two countries. So any of the speakers, would you like to throw some light on this space cooperation? I think.
Sir, may I say a few words on this? I cannot explain completely, but some few words on this.
Just in a minute, yes, please.
I would just say that it's space cooperation. It's not a matter of bilateral relation between any country. It's a matter of whole world as a single unit. All the countries of the world should cooperate.
No, he is not talking about the multilateral global space cooperation. What he is talking about the cooperation between ISRO and the Russian Space Agency. So it's very specific bilateral. And that cooperation is actually very, very important. So just focus on that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. So the next is somebody said that good day every day. Thank you, Tavleen. One is, I strongly disagree that geographical connectivity between India and Russia is one of the main causes that obstruct India to trade with Russia. This question is not specifically asked to anybody. So he is saying that geographical connectivity is not an issue, because if there can be a high trade between India and United States, why not a very high trade between India and Russia? The reason is that with the US you are not trading in energy. Russia's main supply is energy, and to supply energy you need connectivity, either through the land connectivity or through the sea, of course. So if there is a land connectivity, then the supply of energy from Russia becomes very, very important. And Russia is hugely dependent on supply of energy to other countries, and that's why land connectivity becomes important in the case of Russia, which may not be important for USA. So that was one question.
Agree, sir. Can I add one more thing on this?
Just quickly, 30 seconds.
Sir, as you said that between India and Russia only energy cooperation is, we can trade in energy. Russia is exporting energy. On the other side, India can trade on many sectors. And if we look at the trade between India and USA, there is a positive trade balance in Indian side. India trades much more higher to USA compared to what we import from USA.
Yes, I got your point, but the issue is that even the reason you are trying to develop Chabahar port and through that north-south transport corridor to Astrakhan, because we are actually planning to export from Mumbai through Chabahar to the Russian market. But even then, there are some issues, and I don't want to get into detail because there are other presenters. But connectivity is an issue between India and Russia. That's what I would like you to know. And the next question is scope for Indo-Russia partnership in Skill India Mission and Digital India Mission. So who would like to answer? Digital India Mission, Sofia Kutepova, would you like to say something here? The question is from Mujaffar Rasool. Is there a scope for cooperation between a Skill India Mission? A Skill India is actually one of the programs started by Government of India for training people for employment, etc. So he's asking that, is there a space for cooperation between Skill India and Digital India Mission? So do you see some digital cooperation taking place between the two countries?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the name of the mission planned is Gaganyaan. Oh, and it will be it will be launched in 2022, and
Yes,
Wow.
Gaganyaan is about the space cooperation between the two countries.
Yes.
And yeah, and the other launching of missile, etc. But yeah, so that's taken care of. Is there any other question that the audience would like to ask to the presenters? I can take 4-5 questions, not more than that. Anybody, if you wants to speak directly, then you please feel free to speak.
Sir, can I ask one question?
Identify yourself first.
My name is Ujjwal Sonkar and I'm a student of foreign language in Kirov Economics and Law Lyceum
Okay, go ahead.
in Russian Federation.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So I would like to ask that my question wasn't interpreted correctly by a lot of audience. I was specifically talking about Indo-Russia space cooperation, not about world cooperation. And do it with the West is a different thing, but the Indo-Russia joint cooperation in space and technology will be the future for India as well as Russia. So I wanted to ask that what the government India is planning to make uh, the ties more better than it was in the times of Soviet Union to make it India as an emerging superpower in space as well.
Yeah, that was, is there anybody, any of the presenters today session would like to answer this question? Kashyap Pathak, would you like to say something?
No, sir, I cannot.
Okay. No, so if there is nobody, so let me tell you that there was a GLONASS cooperation, the cooperation on the issue of this ISRO and this GLONASS of Russia. But there are certain issues, and if you see the landmark deals which India has been, the kind of deals which India has been signed with the Western countries, so those kind of deals are not being signed as far as the cooperation between GLONASS and ISRO is concerned. But yeah, there was a plan that Russia would help India in providing alternative satellite information, and something must be happening. I'm not very certain about that. So maybe I can request one of the speakers later to connect with you, and that person can answer it later. So that's what I have to tell you at the moment. Is there any other question that anybody would like to ask?
Yes, there is one more question about the earlier question, which was said to that India and Russia should have more connected network. I would like to answer that question that because
Ujjwal,
it's not become.
Ujjwal, we don't have time for answering. I'm sorry. If you have very quick question, just very quick 30 seconds, please. You can ask question. We don't have time for. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Okay, so I want to ask a question about the sanctions done by the US on SWIFT payment network. It has denied Russia from entering that international foreign exchange. So what India and Russia are joint cooperating to counter these sanctions and make a rupee and ruble an acceptable currency to promote trade between the two countries?
Is that the person who was presenting on trade options? So would you like to answer this question? He is asking about the sanctions, and because Russia has been sanctioned, and how that is impacting the cooperation between India and Russia.
Sir, as far as the sanctions imposed by USA, India already signed an agreement with Russia, despite of sanctions. We have signed. I mean, in the year 2019, September 2019, when Shri Modi ji visited Vladivostok, we have signed. Modi ji have already offered a line of credit of $1 billion for the development of particularly Far East Siberia. In fact, we have already launched a scheme of Look Far East, just like Look East policy. Based on this policy, many businessmen of India are already invested in the Far East Russia.
Kashyap, he is not. Wait. Kashyap is not asking that question. What he was asking, let me answer a little bit. What he was trying to say, because Russian, some of the military sector especially, has been sanctioned by the Western countries, especially the United States and some of the European countries. So the impact of that is directly on India, because India is importing a lot of weapons which will come under the domain of American sanctions, especially like the S-400 that you're talking about. This was a speculation in India for a long time that S-400 would be difficult for India to acquire because of the US sanction. And it was also probably argued that India may not get that. But India decided to sign that agreement despite the sanction. And it seems that US, because of the kind of collaboration that we are having with India also, so US is unlikely to stop India from acquiring S-400 and other weapons, because major sanctions have been on the Russian military. And because we import military products from, defense products from Russia, so people thought that some of those imports would come under sanction. But India decided to bypass that. India took a very bold step, and that was a good decision by India. So India is importing all those weapons, and US is not specifically targeting India's import from Russia. So I think we are fine. We are safe till now. So that's what I wanted to tell you.
Exactly.
Any other question? One or two quickly.
If I may comment on that, on the last question, just a few words.
Yeah.
So there are three major ways to bypass these sanctions, which you are mentioning. First, as you mentioned, to create the alternative to SWIFT payments, and Russia with India and China, they are working on this mechanism, but there are not much detail on that in the media. So this is like a work in progress, and we don't know where or at which stage this process is now. The second is to promote trade in national currencies, and I think that now Russia and India have more trade in rubles. According to Russian central bank statistics, the share of ruble in the bilateral transactions has increased significantly in 2019. So I don't remember the numbers, but I think that it is now even more than in dollars, in US dollars. And the final one is to get the green light for each and every deal in defense from the Washington, which India, I think, is successfully doing if we look at the example of S-400.
Okay. Thank you so much. Final question, or is that Kashyap? Kashyap,
So
you have
to add one point, just one point. The payment of S-400 will be done in Indian currency to Russia. I just wanted to give this information.
Okay, thank you so much
Yes.
for that information. Yeah. Okay, so is there any last question? Last one or two questions I'm willing to take, and after that, because we have crossed time limit, it's already 7:22. So last question, if somebody wants to ask. Otherwise, I'll stop it here. Is there a question? Okay. I think, so we're stopping it here. Thank you so much. I would like to thank all the participants of today. Nivedita, Abhishek, Alexei, Ms. Raut, Bhagdar Sethi, then Alexei, Rutuja Raut, Maria, Tavleen, Chitkesh, Rakesh, Sofia Kutipova. Did I forget any name? I'm sorry if I forgot any name. So thank you so much for making this wonderful presentation. It was lovely listening to all of you.
Thank you.
The young voices, the future of India. You are actually the future of India. And you, sorry? Yeah, so you are the future, and it's very important that you carry the tradition which we have inherited from the Soviet times. We have had an excellent relationship with the Soviet time. There was a speculation in the 90s that probably will not be able to carry forward that kind of relationship. But somehow, trust me, till now, we have managed to have a very good relationship in terms of economic partnership, in terms of the strategic partnership. In terms of, the most important part, according to me, between India and Russia is the people-to-people relationship that we have. When you go to Russia, the kind of warmth that you feel from the people there, or when the Russian come to India, the kind of respect, the kind of warmth they feel here. So that is something which makes the relationship between the two countries really, really unique. And somehow, we should not lose the tradition of having the cultural exchanges and not people-to-people exchanges. We need to enhance the student exchanges which should take place between the two countries. because we need to actually enhance the soft power diplomacy, soft power relationship of the two countries. So we are on a very right track. There are some challenges. One of the biggest challenges is that how does India balance Russia's relationship with China, and how does Russia, balance India's relationship with United States? That's number one. Number two, as all of you pointed out, that we need to enhance the economic cooperation between the two countries, because ultimately, if the strategic cooperation somewhere, if we are India trying to diversify, so gradually what will become the pillar of relationship between the two countries would be the economic partnership. Luckily, the investment from Russia has increased significantly in the last few years. If you see that the target which was set up, the target we have already achieved now. So the investment is taking place. And of course, with growing connectivity and with some kind of, if there is an agreement between rupee and ruble, so that is going to lead to more cooperation between the two countries. As far as the cooperation between three countries related to rupee, ruble, and the Chinese currency is concerned, not much progress is likely given the kind of the geopolitics that you know. But of course, India and Russia can cooperate in terms of rupee, ruble cooperation. India and Russia can also cooperate on the issue of Iran and Afghanistan. Because Iran, Russia is very close, and India has a very positive attitude towards Iran. But because of the sanctions, India is unable to import anything from Iran, and we are losing Iran, and China is having much more influence in Iran today. So India can cooperate there. As US Army is withdrawing from Afghanistan, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is going to play a very important role there. So Russia, India, they can play together a very important role in Afghanistan also. And of course, the kind of connection that we have in Central Asia. So I think, there are prospects of intensifying or enhancing the cooperation between the two countries. And I see a good future, despite all the pressures, all the pulls and geopolitical pressures that you see. I see a good future of cooperation between the two countries. I'm not losing hope at all. Indo-Pacific strategy is resented by Russia, but Russia has also realized that there is a compulsion of India, that India has to cooperate with US because of the Chinese factor. India also knows that since Russia has a compulsion because of the sanctions, so Russia will cooperate economically and strategically with China. So with that kind of understanding, I think, with very deft diplomacy, we can overcome these challenges. And I see a good future between India and Russia. And you are the guys, you are the future of India and Russia cooperation. So you must carry forward the legacy. So thank you so much. It was wonderful interacting with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir, Professor Rajan sir.
It was a good time, really.
Really, it's our great honor to have to just request to chair this session and giving very positive and progressive remark to just influence our young generation to continue this our tradition. And really, we are very grateful to you, sir. You just manage all this very extensive and a comprehensive session ranging from the defense cooperation, then the health sector, bilateral, all these aspects of the bilateral development. And I'm very sorry, sir. Actually, you are really looking very tired to manage all these 10 participants. It's not an easy job, sir. We are really grateful to you, sir, for chairing this session. And I am also thankful to you and all the participants from all the universities, from Moscow State University, then the Oriental Institute, MGIMO, JNU, and Pondicherry Central University, Kerala. All the participants, they participated very actively and presented their thoughts in a very wide-ranging manner. Really, this will be definitely the influence to manner to develop our bilateral relationship all over the futures. I have already, Professor Rajan sir already highlighted the issue, and his encouragement and his thoughts definitely will influence us to manage to just promote our bilateral relations. Thank you so much, sir. And once again, thank you to all of you. See you tomorrow, sir.
Dasvidanya. Dasvidanya.
Dasvidanya.
Dasvidanya.
And my special regards to Namita ma'am. I can see her now. Okay. Ma'am, good evening. Happy to see you here, ma'am.
Ma'am, you want to few words, ma'am?
Unmute, ma'am. Unmute.
Unmute, ma'am. Namita ma'am. Unmute.
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 Yes.
Is it okay now? Can you hear my voice?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Good evening all, Professor Rajan and all young participants from India and Russia. Really, I heard all the discussion. It is very interesting and I hope it will be very fruitful for the relationship between India and Russia. And thanks to you all. You have really done research work. You have gone through so many things and you have your young minds, you have your ideas. So I think it will help us, India and Russia, to grow further. The friendship should continue. I'm very thankful to all. And Professor Rajan, really, it is very interesting. Though I feel it is a very hard job for you, tough task, but at the same time, it is very amazing and interesting to listen the views of these young scientists, I will say academicians of both the countries. All the best. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Спасибо за поздравления. Очень
Thank
рад.
you. Спасибо. До свидания. Спасибо вам.
Всем удачи. До свидания.
До свидания.
До свидания.